Why was Tom Cruise sitting alone? What happened next is heartbreaking. So listen. He was alone. No cameras. No bodyguards. No Hollywood smile. Just Tom Cruise, sitting quietly on a weathered bench in a chilly London park. It was a cloudy afternoon. The kind of day when the sky hangs low and the world feels still. The trees were bare, a light fog lingered in the air, and there, almost hidden among the ordinary, sat one of the most famous men on earth. His hood was up, pulled tightly over his head. Dark sunglasses masked his eyes. His posture was slouched, almost as if he was trying to disappear into the bench itself. No phone in hand. No coffee. No assistant pacing nearby. Just silence. If you didn't know any better, you'd walk right past him. And many people did. But not everyone missed it. One passerby, a young woman walking her dog, glanced over and paused. She squinted and whispered to herself, "Wait, is that Tom Cruise?" At first, she wasn't sure. Why would he be here, alone, dressed like that, looking so lost? She didn't approach. She didn't speak. She simply pulled out her phone and took a quick photo from a distance. Not to mock, not to invade, but something about the moment felt unusual, even haunting. She uploaded the photo with a simple caption. Saw someone who looked like Tom Cruise sitting alone in the park. Is he okay? At first, no one believed it. But then someone zoomed in. Someone else did a face comparison. And then someone confirmed the location, not far from where Tom had been shooting his latest film. And that was it. The photo went viral. In just a few hours, it spread across Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, and news sites around the world. Is that really Tom Cruise? Why is he all alone? What happened to him? Is he depressed? Was this staged or real? People were shocked, even worried. This wasn't the Tom Cruise the world was used to. No red carpet. No suit. No wide grin. No hint of the energetic man known for clinging to planes, riding motorcycles at insane speeds, or flashing his trademark charm in every interview. This was someone different. Someone quiet. Still. Almost broken. Speculation exploded online. Some fans defended him. Maybe he just needed a quiet moment. Others were more dramatic. This is a cry for help. And of course, there were jokes too. The internet never misses a chance. But underneath all the noise, one truth remained. No one actually knew why he was sitting there. Not the fans. Not the news outlets. Not even the people walking past him that day. And that's what made it so powerful. It wasn't just the fact that a superstar was seen alone. It was the way he was alone. The loneliness didn't look like a break from filming. It didn't look like a meditation or a casual stroll gone still. It looked heavy. Like someone carrying something on his shoulders he didn't know how to put down. And that mystery, that silent sadness, sparked 1,000 questions across the world. What was he thinking about? Was it about his career? His personal life? Was he mourning something? Or someone? And most of all, what happened next? What came after that photo would reveal a side of Tom Cruise the world had never seen. Not the action hero. Not the star. Not the icon. But the man. The human. The one who feels pain just like the rest of us. And that part of the story is where everything changes. Tom Cruise is the man who always delivers. Whether he's jumping off cliffs in Mission Impossible, flying jets in Top Gun, or flashing the $1 million smile on the red carpet, he never seems to miss a beat. To the world, he's a symbol of energy, confidence, and eternal youth. He's fearless. He's focused. He's the action hero who does his own stunts and never slows down. But that's just the surface. behind that legendary smile is a man carrying more pressure than most people can imagine. At 62 years old, Tom Cruise has lived more than 40 years in the harsh spotlight of fame. From his early days in risky business to becoming one of the highest-paid actors in the world, his life has been non-stop. Every moment, every move, every word captured, judged, and replayed by the world. Imagine being watched, praised, criticized, and picked apart. Every single day for decades. Every wrinkle on his face? He's aging. Every quiet moment? He's depressed. Every relationship? A headline. Every friend? A rumor. For most of us, a bad day stays private. For Tom, a bad day becomes global news. And that constant attention, over time, began to wear him down. After the global success of Top Gun: Maverick, Tom was back on top. The film smashed records. Critics praised his performance. Fans celebrated his return to one of his most iconic roles. But behind the scenes, things weren't so easy. Studios immediately pushed for more action, more sequels, more appearances. Schedules filled up. Stunt work resumed. Interviews, premieres, endless press tours. There was no pause. No breathing room. Even during filming, Tom wasn't just acting, he was also producing, planning, managing. The pressure to always outdo his last performance was crushing. People wanted the superhuman version of Tom Cruise, the one who never slowed down. But the real Tom? He was getting tired. Not just in his body, but deep down in his soul. At night, when the cameras were off and the lights went out, the silence was deafening. There was no one waiting for him at home. No partner to share the day with. No child to hug before bed. No lifelong friend he could call just to say, "I'm not okay." He was surrounded by people all day, assistants, directors, stylists, publicists, but somehow still felt incredibly alone. It's a strange kind of loneliness. The kind that comes from being seen by millions, but known by no one. Tom has always kept his private life private. After high-profile marriages and public breakups, he became more guarded, more careful, less trusting. He built a world where everything looked perfect, but inside, cracks had started to form. And the worst part? No one noticed. Because he was always smiling, always performing, always saying, "Everything's great." The image of him sitting quietly on that bench in the park wasn't just a random moment. It was a result of all those years of emotional exhaustion. It was the face of a man who had given everything to the world and was now wondering what he had left for himself. He didn't need applause. He didn't need another blockbuster. He just needed a moment to feel human again. To breathe. To grieve. To sit still. And it wasn't just the pressure of being a movie star. It was the loss of connection. The slow fading of real friendships. The constant demand to be on. Despite being loved by millions, Tom had no one to call late at night. No one who knew the real him, not the actor, but the man underneath. Just silence. And that silence became louder after the success of Top Gun: Maverick. Because when the world cheers, but your heart still feels empty, you begin to ask, what am I doing all this for? Fame can give you everything, but it can also take away the most important things. Time. Peace. Real connection. That's the truth behind the smile. That's the hidden story the world didn't see until that single photo, in that quiet London park, opened the door to everything he'd been carrying inside. Fame, pressure, and loneliness had already taken their toll on Tom Cruise. But there was something deeper, something more painful, that brought him to that cold bench in the London park. It wasn't a broken contract. It wasn't a failed film. It wasn't bad press or gossip. It was loss. A few weeks before that now viral photo was taken, Tom Cruise received a quiet phone call. The kind of phone call that changes everything in a single moment. His childhood best friend, the man he once called his brother, had passed away after a long, private battle with cancer. The world didn't know. There were no headlines, no Instagram tributes, no carefully written press statements from his publicist. Because this wasn't about the public. This wasn't for fans. This was deeply personal. Tom didn't speak about it. He didn't need to. But those close to him noticed the shift. This friend, let's call him David for the sake of the story, wasn't part of the Hollywood circle. He wasn't a celebrity. He didn't care about premieres, contracts, or how much a movie made at the box office. He knew Tom before Tom was Tom Cruise. Before the fame. Before the fortune. Before the action roles and red carpets. They met as teenagers. Two young kids with big dreams and even bigger imaginations. They used to ride bikes around the neighborhood, talk about girls, and make silly home videos on old camcorders. David was the kind of friend who saw Tom cry over his first heartbreak, who knew his insecurities before they were buried under fame and success. The one who celebrated his first film role with pizza and soda in a tiny apartment, not champagne at an after-party. And through all the years, despite the distance, despite the chaos of celebrity life, they stayed in touch. Quietly. Privately. David didn't ask for anything. He didn't chase the spotlight. He just remained a real friend, the kind that fame can't buy. When David got sick, he didn't tell many people. Not because he didn't trust them, but because he didn't want to be treated differently. He didn't want pity. He didn't want the attention. Tom knew. And he kept it quiet too. He visited him when he could. He called him regularly. They'd talk about old times, not movies, not Hollywood, but memories that belonged only to them. But as David's health worsened, those calls became shorter, then fewer. And finally, they stopped. When the news came, it hit Tom harder than even he expected. Because losing David wasn't just losing a friend. It was losing the last piece of his past that felt pure. In a life where everything is controlled, scripted, and performed, David was real. He was home. He reminded Tom of who he used to be, just a kid with a dream, before the world demanded perfection. That loss shook him. It didn't matter how many awards he'd won, how many stunts he'd survived, or how many people cheered his name. None of that could bring his friend back. And that's why, on that cloudy day, he walked into the park, alone. No assistants. No team. No camera crew. Just Tom. And his thoughts. He found a bench in a quiet spot, away from the noise, away from the spotlight, and sat down. Not to think about his next movie. Not to plan his next press tour. But to simply grieve. He didn't need a therapist or a spiritual guide. He just needed stillness. He needed to feel that pain, fully, without distraction. He needed to remember David. Their laughs. Their talks. The moments that made life feel real, long before the fame blurred everything. To the people walking by, it just looked like a man sitting in silence. But what they didn't see was the storm inside him. The quiet tears. The memories playing like scenes from a film only he could see. The ache of a goodbye that no one else would understand. That is what brought Tom Cruise to that bench. Not a midlife crisis. Not a publicity stunt. But the weight of losing someone irreplaceable. Someone who saw the man behind the name. And loved him, not for what he achieved, but for who he truly was. The park was quiet. Tom Cruise had been sitting alone on that bench for nearly an hour, his thoughts swirling like the cold wind around him. The world outside kept moving, cars passed, leaves rustled, birds chirped. But inside, he felt frozen, numb. That one photo of him, hoodie up, sunglasses on, shoulders hunched, was already making its way across the internet. But Tom didn't know. And he wouldn't have cared if he did. Because in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the movies. Not the money. Not the fame. Just the weight of grief and the silence of loss. Then, out of nowhere, something unexpected happened. A woman, perhaps in her early 70s, walked by with her small terrier on a leash. She was bundled up in a knitted scarf, a soft wool coat, and gentle eyes that had clearly seen many winters. She didn't recognize him. To her, he wasn't Tom Cruise, the movie star. He was just a man sitting on a bench with sadness written all over his face. As she passed, she paused, looked at him, and said with soft concern, "Are you all right, dear?" Just 4 words. Simple. Kind. Real. Tom didn't answer right away. He looked up slowly, surprised. Not because someone spoke to him, but because of how she spoke to him. Not as a celebrity. Not with expectation. But like a human. Like someone who saw he was hurting. He took a deep breath, removed his sunglasses, and for the first time in hours, maybe even days, made eye contact. And then, in a voice that barely rose above a whisper, he said, "Not really. But thank you for asking." There was a moment of silence. The woman looked at him, smiled gently, and said, "Would you like some company?" Tom nodded. She sat beside him, and for the next 20 minutes, something extraordinary happened. Something more powerful than any scene in a movie. They talked. Not about films or premieres. Not about box office numbers or stunt scenes. But about life. About grief. About getting older. About people they'd lost. About regrets. About love, the kind that changes you, and the kind that slips away when you're not ready. The woman shared that she had lost her husband 5 years ago. That some days, she still talked to him while making tea out of habit. That healing doesn't mean forgetting. It just means learning to live with the missing piece. Tom listened. Really listened. And then he opened up too. For the first time in a long while, he let his guard down. He spoke about his friend, the one he had just lost. About how that friend knew him before anyone else. About how it felt like the last thread tying him to his past had snapped. For those 20 minutes, Tom Cruise wasn't a star. He was just a man sitting next to a kind stranger who reminded him that pain doesn't need to be hidden, it needs to be heard. No cameras. No spotlight. No performance. Just presence. When their conversation ended, the woman gently squeezed his hand and said, "Whatever you're carrying, it's okay to set it down for a while." Then she stood, smiled once more, and walked away with her little dog, disappearing down the park path like an angel in disguise. She never asked for a photo. She never screamed or gasped in recognition. She didn't even know who he was. Not until later. That evening, her granddaughter showed her the now viral picture of Tom sitting alone on the bench. Her eyes widened. "That's him?" she asked in disbelief. She was shocked, and then smiled. "Well, I'm glad I didn't know. I think he needed someone who didn't." For Tom, that small encounter changed something inside him. It reminded him of something powerful, something fame often buries deep beneath the surface, that it's okay to feel. It's okay to hurt. It's okay not to be okay. He wasn't just a brand or a blockbuster machine. He was still allowed to be real. That woman, in her simplicity and kindness, gave him a gift no Hollywood role ever could, a moment of being seen, not as a star, but as a person. And that is what began to lift the heaviness he'd been carrying for so long. The photo had already gone viral. Millions of people around the world had seen it. Tom Cruise, the man known for action, stunts, and always smiling, sitting alone on a park bench. No cameras. No entourage. Just stillness. Speculation flooded the internet. Was he okay? Was he sick? Was this a scene from an upcoming film? But it wasn't any of those things. And then, just a few days later, Tom did something rare. He spoke. Not through a press conference or a flashy video, but through a short, deeply personal statement shared quietly with the world. It read, "Sometimes we all need to sit in silence. To feel, to remember, to heal. I'm grateful for the love, but I'm more grateful for those who show kindness when no one is watching." There was no movie to promote, no scandal to respond to, no agenda. Just words. Honest, human, and raw. People were surprised. Tom Cruise, the man who had spent decades being larger than life, was finally showing something more powerful than strength, vulnerability. And that one sentence moved people. Across social media, fans and strangers alike shared stories of their own grief, loneliness, and the power of a stranger's kindness. People said they'd never seen Tom this real, this grounded, this open. But for Tom, it wasn't about the public response anymore. That moment in the park, the silence, the sadness, the simple conversation with a kind old woman had changed him. It reminded him that he didn't always have to be Tom Cruise. He could just be Tom, according to sources close to him. People who had known him beyond the lights and cameras, Tom began making small, but meaningful changes in his life. He started slowing down. No more nonstop filming. No more back-to-back stunts. He began turning down roles that didn't feel right. Started saying no more often, even when studios begged for a sequel. He began spending more time in nature, hiking in the mountains, walking alone by the sea, even just sitting quietly under trees in his backyard. He picked up an old habit he had long forgotten, writing letters by hand. Not emails. Not texts. Letters. He began reaching out to old friends, people from before the fame, just to say thank you, or I miss you, or I hope you're doing well. And he didn't post about it. He didn't make it content. He did it because it felt right. Because after everything he had achieved, from blockbuster hits to global fame, he had realized something. None of it mattered if you lost your connection to real people, to real emotions. That day on the bench taught him something powerful. It wasn't the paparazzi who brought him peace. It wasn't a luxurious vacation or a 5-star resort. It was a stranger. A single act of kindness. A quiet conversation. It was someone asking, "Are you all right, dear?" without knowing who he was, and caring anyway. Tom had spent so many years being the hero on screen, jumping from planes, racing cars, fighting villains. But in that moment, he learned that sometimes heroes aren't loud. Sometimes, they come in the form of an elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm voice. So what did Tom do next? He lived differently. Not dramatically, not loudly, but intentionally. He started choosing peace over pressure. He started prioritizing connection over performance. And most importantly, he started rediscovering the man he was before the fame, the boy with big dreams, the teenager who laughed with his best friend, the human who felt deeply but had learned to hide it behind a smile. The world had seen an image of a man alone. But what they didn't know, until now, was the story behind the silence. A story of grief. A story of friendship. A story of rediscovery. And in the end, a story of hope. Because if someone like Tom Cruise, a man who's spent 40 years being unbreakable, can stop, feel, and change, maybe there's hope for all of us. Hope that healing doesn't come from headlines or applause, but from the quiet, beautiful moments when we're reminded that we're not alone, that even the strongest among us need saving sometimes. And sometimes, it starts with 4 simple words. Are you alright, dear? Like, share, and subscribe. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to AI Stories Maker for more emotional and powerful stories just like this.